everybody, Aimer back with another Mission Impossible episode review. I messed up the opening for this, so that's why I'm wearing a different shirt. This time I am reviewing Season 7, Episode 14, called Incarnate. This one begins with a fellow named Robert O'Connell hiding a bunch of U.S. Treasury gold in a fireplace. His mother Hannah finds him there, telling him that she's just learned that he was the one who stole the gold from her and turned her in for tax fraud. Robert denies it, but Hannah has proof. Robert pulls out a gun and threatens to shoot her for the gold, but Hannah shoots first, cradling him as he dies. Jim goes to a studio for instructions. The mission: Hannah and her remaining son Thomas have fled to an island called Jamada, from which she can't be extradited, and the IMF must recover the gold and get Hannah to return to the U.S. and sent to prison. We have an apartment scene where we see a bunch of items related to the practice of voodoo and holographic images to trap the superstitious Hannah. Off we go to Jamada, where housekeeper Casey welcomes the O'Connells to their new home, where she tells them that the servants have left because of ominous voodoo drums that were heard in the night. Thomas rolls his eyes at the superstitious nonsense, even as Casey tells them that their home has been the site of strange disappearances in the past. Willie causes some strange noises and visions to appear around the house, and during the night drums are heard in the distance again. Pilot Jim arrives, offering his services in case Hannah ever needs anything, as he's heard through the grapevine about, things that happen. He tells her about a potential deal he has to smuggle drugs into the U.S. for a quick profit, but she's not interested. Casey lets Barney and Willie into the house and into a secret door next to Hannah's room, while she prepares some spiked tea for her with a hypnotic effect. Barney pipes the image and sound of Robert laughing and talking to Hannah into the room, causing Thomas to come in to check on her, along with their two henchmen, Kelso and Dahl, but she says it was nothing. She returns to bed to find a scorpion under her pillow. The next morning, Casey brings the O'Connells to the marketplace to look for new servants for the home, and they visit store owner Barney, but he says he can't help as people are afraid of the house. The random drums continue, and Hannah finds a ring, which is a duplicate of one that Robert had. Barney touches it and drops it, saying that it is an omen of evil and death, and says if she wants it, she can have it. Thomas figures it's just a coincidence that it's a similar ring, but Hannah tells Kelso and Dahl to keep a close guard on the house tonight. That night, Casey gives Kelso some spiked coffee, knocking him out so Willie can take him away, and Hannah sees and hears Robert again. In the morning, Kelso is found apparently drowned in the shallow pool outside the house. Dr. Willie comes by and says he'll perform an autopsy. And for Thomas's benefit, Willie pretends to be interested in Casey. Hannah confronts Barney about how he knew that death was coming, and after touching her hand again, Barney recoils, saying that there is something out there that hates her and is wishing 3 deaths around her, by water, air, then fire. He offers her the money back, saying that if she wishes, there is an exorcism ritual that might remove whatever is surrounding her. Willie returns to the house and Jim knocks Dahl out from behind. Casey allows Thomas to put the moves on her to distract him so that Jim can set Dahl up to appear to have hung himself in Hannah's room. So she calls Barney back and tells him to set up the ceremony. He comes by in the evening to take her to the place, to Thomas's disgust. Jealous Dr. Willie arrives and gets angry that Casey is getting romantic with Thomas after he's tried with her for years, and a fight ensues. Casey puts a gun in Thomas's hand and he shoots Willie, saying he'll have to leave the island to avoid the police, who would put him away just based on his record, even with Casey saying it was self-defense. He gets a hidden lockbox with the money he and his mother brought with them, with Casey readying a knockout ring, but Thomas knocks her out first and dashes off. At the voodoo ceremony, it turns out that Barney is actually the priest, and the ceremony is performed. Robert appears in the flames and tells Hannah that the curse will remain unless she tells him where she hid the gold. Barney knocks Hannah out, putting blanks in her gun. Willie and Jim find Casey but are unable to find Thomas, who it turns out is still hanging around the house. Hannah wakes in the morning and finds the ceremony participants leaving in a van, with an unconscious but very much alive Kelso. Casey arrives to find Hannah, telling her that Thomas has left for the U.S. Hannah takes her car and drives off, confronting Barney about who's put him up to it. He admits that it was Thomas who set the whole thing up, and during the ceremony she told Robert and Thomas, who was listening, where the gold was hidden. Hannah shoots Barney to keep him quiet and calls pilot Jim for an immediate flight. Jim arrives with Thomas hidden in the trees outside. He agrees to take Hannah to the U.S. for 25% of whatever she's after, and she agrees. Barney gets up and catches a glimpse of Robert outside, grabbing him and knocking him out so that he can't interfere with Hannah's getaway. Hannah returns to the fireplace from the opening scene and starts taking out the gold bricks. Hidden with the bricks is a gun, which Jim wrestles away from her. Feds arrive to take Hannah away as Jim gives her a meaningful look. Mission accomplished. I'm going to give this episode a grade of a D+. It's actually gotten a fair bit easier for me to do the grading now that I've kind of done my spreadsheet and I can kind of compare. And I can look at the ones that got a certain grade and say, okay, is this episode better than that? Or is it not as good as that? Or does it kind of go along with this? And I can kind of find where it fits. It's actually a lot easier. So with this one, I looked back at some past episodes. And when I looked and I saw that I gave the episode from season 5 a ghost story, if you remember that one, with the Bainbridge family. I gave a ghost story a D+. And I said, yeah, you know what? This episode is right on par with that. Got some entertaining things going on, got some things about it that are not so great, but I would say these episodes are right neck and neck with each other. Starting with the good. The basics of this episode, as I've commented with just about all of the episodes in Season 7, are fine. The teamwork is good. The story is okay. I would say it's pretty ordinary. But the wild card towards the end of Thomas O'Connell kind of going into business for himself was pretty neat. It wasn't overly contrived, and I thought that that was a very interesting plot twist. However, I think it is pretty much telegraphed from the very beginning of the episode that the IMF is going to, get Hannah to lead them to the gold. It's, you can tell that by now, if you watch the series enough. Also good. Kim Hunter as Hannah O'Connell is really good. She is the first of 3 female villains who are going to appear in this season. And it's interesting that with season 7, the producers and writers now wrote female villains into the stories. There have not been that many before season 7. The only 2 that I can think of are back in season 2 in the episode Spy, we had Felicia Vabar, who was played by Kate Woodville. And in season 3, we had Ruth Roman in the Elixir. And while there have been a lot of really great female presences on a lot of shows, they are not, technically speaking, the villains or, the targets of the IMF. For example, Joan Collins in Nicole, she's, the title character and all of that, but she isn't actually the IMF's target in that episode. She's not the quote-unquote villain, if you understand what I mean. So here, Kim Hunter is great, I think, as Hannah O'Connell. She's got the presence that makes you believe that she's a formidable lady. I know that from time to time, like I think at one point Kim says, she's a really tough lady and that sort of thing. Normally, I would call that an informed characteristic. I think I've mentioned that before. If somebody is tough, you don't talk about it. That person kind of exudes it. The audience can feel it for themselves. Here, it wasn't overdone, and I think it wasn't too bad. That sort of dialogue was probably written in just in case the audience didn't get it. I think it was a little bit unnecessary, but as I said, it wasn't terrible. Better than that, though, is Robert Hogan, who is a very, very prolific character actor. He is fantastic in this, and as good as he is, I would say that the Thomas O'Connell character was better. I dare say it's quite possible that he was probably supposed to be the villain in the episode, but they said, you know what, we have a chance of putting in Kim Hunter, and it would be good to have more of a female presence in this episode and in the show overall. So good choice there, but man, Robert Hogan would have been just fine as a villain in this one if that's the direction that they wanted to go. And like I said, his whole subplot towards the end was actually really, really well done, in my opinion. An interesting note, it was kind of neat when Jim, in his first conversation with the O'Connells, references Benjamin Dane from Chicago. Hey, maybe you've heard of the guy. Benjamin Dane was, of course, the character from the episode Movie about 6 or 7 episodes ago. It's just a note I thought I would throw out there. Moving on to the stuff that is not so good. While I said that Kim Hunter as the actress was really, really good, Hannah O'Connell as a character is lame. Very, very easily manipulatable, I think, just as a base character. And also, because of her belief in the supernatural and so forth, she's predisposed to becoming a schmuck because of that lameness. Her schmuckiness is not, it's not total, but it's there. And you can see that as the story progresses, she kind of goes a little bit, downhill from being, this really, really strong lady to this person who's becoming really worried and paranoid, everywhere she goes and with everything that happens. So, in terms of like being a real great quality villain, unfortunately, she's lacking somewhat. She is engaging. She's not boring. She is entertaining. So definitely I will give her that. But as a villain overall, yeah, the character could have used some work. Also not great. The whole suggestibility thing, I've mentioned this many, many times. They give Hannah a drug which is supposed to, make her a little bit suggestible to hypnosis and whatever. I don't even think that was really, really necessary. It seems pretty egregious to me. I think that Hannah was, sufficiently spooked just by the images and sounds of seeing Robert in her bedroom that, that extra thing was really, really not necessary at all. The portrayal of the supernatural and the voodoo aspects of the story isn't great. I have no way of knowing how accurate any of the stuff about voodoo is in this episode. It seemed to me, I have no firsthand knowledge at all. If somebody does, please enlighten me. If there are any practitioners or people who know anything about this out there. Maybe what we saw in the ceremony is somewhat accurate. I think some of the names that Barney referred to were somewhat accurate. Even if accurate, I don't feel that it really came off well. I didn't really get much out of that, and something just seemed off to me, is the way that I would put it. I didn't really like it at all, and I thought, and I don't think that it took away from the episode or the screenplay, so to speak, but it did take a while, and I don't know, there was just something kind of incongruous about it. Something just didn't fit right with it to me. That's how it came off to me. Since we're getting close to the revival series, I will mention that there is an episode in the revival series called Bayou, which also does have some aspects of voodoo involved in the episode. It comes off much better in that one, because I think the writers laid more of a proper foundation for it, instead of just being a thing, just being like a plot device for the sake of being a plot device. There's a whole thing here where the writers, I think, want to establish this whole idea of the supernatural, pervading the episode and kind of maybe being the reason for, the downfall of Hannah O'Connell in a sense, and kind of, dramatizing that. They start out the episode with this whole motif with scorpions. There's a little scorpion figure, and a scorpion necklace is seen, and there was a scorpion under Hannah's pillow the first night, and nothing becomes of that. It's just something. It feels like the writers put in that stuff and a lot of this voodoo stuff just to kind of give it this ambiance and just to have it be filler for the episode so that they could fill the hour. That's just how it feels to me, and that's why I feel that it doesn't come across terribly well. This is going to be a shorter review than most because, frankly, I don't think there's too much else of note in this one. There's really nothing else here where there's kind of new ground uncovered other than what I've mentioned. In many ways, I would call it like a bit of a cookie cutter episode, maybe kind of in a more unique setting, if you want to call it that. So I don't think I really have a whole heck of a lot else to say. So I think I'll wrap it up with that. Thank you guys for always, Thank you guys as always for watching. Please like this episode review video. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and please leave your comments about this and other episodes. Thank you again as we wind down the original series, and I'll see you next time.